Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live, talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynn@pghcitypaper.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hey there, how you doing? Good to see you. That's a figure of speech. Good to be seen, assuming you're looking at me. I don't suggest it, but there you are. I just saw Trump's latest tweet. Good God. 20 minutes ago, the president, who's a busy man, as you know, tweeted this. Virtually no president has accomplished what we have accomplished in the first 9 months. Name one thing he's accomplished. I got it. I know one thing he's accomplished. He has totally divided this nation that was already divided. He has, solidified it. Divided every venue in the one we had, an NFL football stadium, gone. Sports arenas, gone. He's divided us more than we've been divided since the Civil War. Name a legislative accomplishment. Name anything that's happened. What he's done is destroyed or attempt to destroy anything that his predecessor accomplished. And his predecessor accomplished, one can't even remember the flurry of legislative activity and accomplishment in the first 9 months of Barack Obama's presidency. This liar-in-chief that we have now, who can, I suspect, believe it, that he's accomplished more in 9 months than any president in the United States? What have you done? So, this problem called Donald Trump and his mental illness, because I feel quite certain that this is a sick puppy. A lot of people acknowledge when physical ailments handicap somebody's ability to live. But a lot of folks don't acknowledge that mental inability, psychological inability is up there too, and we are witnessing it, unfortunately, getting a real object lesson in the presidency of this narcissistic megalomaniac. So it was pointed out in a piece I read that no matter what the issue, no matter what his job as the president is at any given moment, whether it be touting a legislative measure, whether it be campaigning for somebody, whether it be as consoler-in-chief when we are brought low by natural disaster, let's say. But it was pointed out that this guy, this sick puppy, has an extraordinary need and capacity for self-congratulation. That no matter what the venue, he spends much of his energy and verbiage assuring anybody who's listening that he's the greatest, or that anything around him is the greatest, or that anybody, the biggest, the best. And, superlative adjectives getting a workout here. And he does it at times that are so where it is so discordant, where it is so what's the word? Unsomething. Such as the first time he went to Texas after the hurricane there. And he was talking to like some officials there, and he said, "We'll congratulate ourselves later." And I thought, people are what are you talking about? And then remember, some people came to see him give a little speech on a flatbed or something of a truck. I don't know where he was. Few people, supporters. And he said, "What a crowd! What an amazing turnout!" He'd supposedly come to witness devastation, but he cannot ever get out of his own way because he is the center, the subject, the noun of every moment. And it's especially galling to me when people are expecting words of support, promises of help. I'm talking about what he said to Puerto Rico yesterday. He's been roundly criticized, rightfully so, for this weekend saying nothing about Puerto Rico. Which is those are American citizens. Do you understand that? Apparently most Americans don't. They are a strange kind of American citizen that does not have the right to vote in national elections because they, are not a state. They're a commonwealth. But they are U.S. citizens. And he's just left them. Anyone who's been there says this is a brink. We're right on the edge of a incredible humanitarian disaster there. And here's the president. Did you see this with the president or prime minister of Spain standing next to him? It's just, I'm sick of having my muscles have to contract all the time. I mean, it's like, it's cringe. I'm sick of cringing. So when a reporter said, what's taking so long with getting some aid to the Puerto Rican people? And he said, there's this thing. There's this thing called the Atlantic. And he said, Puerto Rico, it's on an island. He's really taken by the fact that there's a ocean and that Puerto Rico's on an island, and he repeated it in one form or another a few times. It's on an island. An island in the middle of the ocean. That thing. The Atlantic. You can't drive your trucks there. No, but will someone please inform the president that there are things called boats, ships, helicopters, planes. I know they got infrastructure problems, but where there's a will, there's a way. And he stood there with the prime minister of Spain, And somebody counted this. Over 12 times in the course of this back and forth, he complimented himself on the efforts, on the bring out the usual adjectives. Bring out the president's adjective book. The superlatives, yeah. He patted himself on the back, said that what we were doing in Puerto Rico was amazing. He said it was tremendous. He said it was incredible. He said it was really good. And then, oh my God, cringe, muscle contraction, cringe. He started comparing again the Puerto Ricans with Floridians and Texans. And the clear distinction is Floridians and Texans, good. Puerto Ricans, pfft. He talked about how great, how incredible, superlatives, our efforts in Texas and Florida have been, how tremendous and great the two Republican governors of those states are. He called them out by name. Wow, great, great governors. And then he remembered that Puerto Rico was sort of the main topic, and he couldn't bring himself to say the same for the Puerto Rican people or for the governor of Puerto Rico. In fact, what he said is all the more repulsive. After praising Governor Scott in Florida and Governor Abbott in Texas, our orange monstrosity said of the people of the governor of Puerto Rico. Listen to this. The governor has been so incredible in this. Well, it sounds like he's given him credit. Not. Listen to the rest of the sentence. The governor of Puerto Rico has been so incredible in his statements about the job we're doing. Patted himself on the back again. He said the governor of Puerto Rico was only incredible in as much as he was praising Donald Trump. You know, I was having a bad day yesterday. You might have noticed that. And thank God Susan was here. Thank God. It was sort of like help had finally arrived after my, holding down the fort without you guys, and I must have had sort of a psychological, mental, almost physical collapse. And man, she picked it up and ran with it. I loved listening to her and everything she said. But I realized as I shuffled out of my house today that you're back in the seat. You gotta step up here. But I'm still, you must have the same problem. There are days, there are weeks, there are moments where you're fully aware of the critical state of our country, but you still, can compartmentalize it and live your life. And then there are times when it just sort of overwhelms you, takes you down, sort of like walking into the ocean and getting smacked by a wave that takes you down. And I'm in one of those situations at the moment with this guy. I think the whole NFL thing, when I saw how far he'll go to distract us from subjects, issues, events that we need to pay attention to, turn them around, reframe them successfully, and put each of us at each other's throats. You got to give them credit for being masterful at that. Instead of having this obviously necessary and difficult conversation about racism in this country, we've managed to back it up so that we're arguing with each other about whether football players should kneel or stand in tunnels or hook up arms or we're talking about the flag and what it means. We're talking about statues. You understand that's really off point. Or as I believe Dr. King said, we've taken our eyes off the prize. So, hey, we can take phone calls. So I just want to, and I'll get a thing. We'll stick it right up here so you'll have the number. We're slow, okay? We're slow. 412. That's no surprise. Unless you were expecting an 800 number. 412 200. Even I can remember that one. 5686. 5686. I've told you I used to remember numbers using the jersey numbers of the Packers of the 60s. And I still tend to, but I can't think of a 56. I think 86 was Boyd Dowler. Somebody look it up, I think, yeah. 256, Boyd Dowler. Tight end. You know how, when your brain is supple and young, like mine was in the 60s, that's the music I know. Those are the lyrics I know. That's a lot of my brain is full of stuff from that period when I was young and hungry and capable of retention. Laura writes about Trump's tweet that he's accomplished more in his 9 months than any other president. She says that statement is true. He's the only president who has accomplished nothing. Well, you're stretching it there, Laura, but I get the point. It's unbelievable. Margaret says he absolutely believes what he's saying. And Margaret says, I'm just tired. Yeah, that's also, though, a problem, right? Getting us overwhelmed, getting us exhausted by the sheer insanity and fright of what's happening on a daily basis. And we're 9 months in, this guy's got 3 years and 3 months left. And then you look at what's happening politically, and you worry. The fact that Senator Corker from the state of Tennessee has announced he will not run again. That's a Republican seat up for grabs. No, not up for grabs. It's Tennessee. Okay? So you know what happens in those cases? People will have a no-holds-barred crazy time primary season there, where probably the craziest, most right-wing, most racist, most fascistically inclined Republican will win. And then in the general election, the hapless Democrat will get more votes than any Democrat has had in a long time in the state of Tennessee, but it won't be enough, right? That's the way I see it. And that's what we're seeing in Alabama now. The fact that this Moore. Is that his name? Why am I blanking on it? This horrible human who won the primary yesterday. He's going to be in the Senate of the United States. Do you know this guy? You remember this guy? He almost makes Jeff Sessions look progressive. I mean, this guy is a knuckle-dragging bigot of the, exemplary of that. We first got to know him when he lost his job as the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court in Alabama because he wouldn't take the 10 Commandments down when he'd been ordered to do so by maybe, I don't know what, somebody, the Supreme Court. Then, somehow, the people loved him so much, they put him back in, even though he'd been removed by a judicial authority. They put this jerk back in as their Chief Justice, and he again gets booted out because when the Supreme Court found that gay marriage was constitutional, he refused. He refused to acknowledge the Supreme Court. So this is a guy who does not acknowledge that the Constitution of this United States is how we govern, that this is a nation of law. He is a theocrat. He believes Jesus is above the Constitution, and that's how he arrives at his positions. Jesus. I'm sorry, I said Jesus, and I found myself wanting to say Jesus. I was behind a guy with a bumper sticker that said, Jesus save us. I said, I'll sign on to that, and I don't even believe somebody. Oh, Laura says about his comments about this thing called the Atlantic, and it's an island. It's in the ocean. He sounds like a second grader. He sounds like, I know 4-year-olds who come up with those kinds of statements. And you say, everybody smile, the adults smile. Isn't he smart? He knows Puerto Rico's an island, that it means it's surrounded by water. And there's this big thing of water called the Atlantic. Laura says, I was actually surprised he knew where Puerto Rico was. Well, you know why he knows. He had a deal there. Golf course. Golf course? You aware of the golf course deal that the people of Puerto Rico are still paying for? He since has, of course, declared bankruptcy and left, and they're stuck holding a bunch of bonds that went. I think he cost the taxpayers of Puerto Rico tens of millions of dollars in his little attempt at a venture in the island of Puerto Rico, on the island of Puerto Rico. And there he was the other day tweeting about, oh, terrible infrastructure, terrible. They owe Wall Street. He owes Wall Street. It's why no bank in the country will loan anything to him. They won't give him a loan. It's why he has to go to Deutsche Bank. One of the reasons maybe the Puerto Ricans didn't have the infrastructure or the ability to fix their infrastructure is because they're too busy paying off these bonds that you forfeited on, or whatever the heck the proper. Let me see. I actually have. I think I can explain this better. If you didn't know, isn't it something? Yeah, he knows where these places are because, yeah. It says here, Trump's failed Puerto Rico golf course has cost Puerto Rico taxpayers more than $32 million. This is the guy, this is the grifter in chief. This is the guy who knows how to play governments so that they give him money. And when things don't work out exactly like he wants them to, he just picks up and leaves, right? And leaves them holding the bag, owing the money. This was one of those cases where there was an existing golf course, And he got paid an extraordinary amount of money just to have his name put on it. It was renamed the Trump International Golf Club of Puerto Rico. That was back in 2008. And the government-backed bonds, $26 million. Then he defaulted. He declared bankruptcy, and he packed his bags and left Puerto Rico, and they were holding a $32+ million bill. And you can't. All right. What do we got here? Rosie says Puerto Ricans may vote for the president if they live on the mainland. Well, yeah, because then they're a resident of whatever state they're in. But, yeah. And Roger says, do you know that because of President Crazy Pants' ability to inflame any topic and his inability to keep his mouth shut, we can't even talk about football in our office now? Isn't that the truth? That's why I think that's what did it to me. It was the one, because we're so divided, if you were with family and you have a divided family, you could at least talk about football, right? The weather and football. We're still safe, kind of. Of course, the weather with climate gets you to climate change, which gets you at each other's throats again. Now, football is no longer a safe place because he puts us in a position, each and every one of us always, to choose sides. You're either here or you're there. And we know which side we're on, so we go to our sides. But there were these neutral territories. And he's going to take them out one by one. And in that regard, I will say his statement was true. As Laura said, it was true. He's accomplished more than anybody, namely nothing. Nobody's ever managed that before. But he has helped to destroy our trust in each other, in our institutions, our enjoyment of simple pleasures, like watching guys bang each other's heads around. He's masterful. I'll tip my hat to the SOB. He's masterful at that. Mark, have you heard... Oh, yeah, Scott Pruitt. Thank you for reminding me. Have you heard Scott Pruitt, the administrator of the Environmental Protection Association, which needs to change its name under Scott Pruitt to the Environmental Destruction Administration, has installed a $25,000 soundproof booth in his office? Yes, I did. This is the same guy who's spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on private jets. We've got a caller. Hi, caller. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
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 Do you think the American people awoken to this? I mean, they needed a wake-up call. Do you think they woke up after seeing what Trump's about? I mean, I'm not so sure they did. I mean, I'm thinking the next election, hell, we still might be stuck with Republicans.
I agree.
And I don't know if Trump will be kicked out, but I'm not sure if and stick a firecracker in their ass. I mean, I don't know what the hell the problem is with the people. We'll see with the election, but I'm just sure maybe it'll just go along again. It's just I'm shocked by it all. You know what I mean?
I know, and I didn't say it, but I don't disagree with you that it is quite conceivable that after the 2018 elections that they'll still be in power.
I mean, with all the gerrymandering and all the stuff that the illegal shit they do, you'd have to have a really good turnout to knock out a
Absolutely. You'd have to do what. Right. Right.
And if we still have a candidate for president that's preaching the same old stuff, oh, we're done. We're done. I mean, if we don't get somebody out there to talk about the important things, I mean, the other stuff's fine, but you can't just concentrate on that, I don't know.
I hear you, and I don't disagree.
At this point, I would have thought there'd have been more. I don't know. Maybe I'm looking for something that's not there. Wait till election.
Hang in there.
Okay. Then.
All righty. Bye.
We'll see you.
Bye.
Okay, thank you.
No, I agree with you completely. I mean, as a matter of fact, I think you will see, as I said, if you're going to have this Judge Moore as a senator now, we're going to have worse people, even worse. I was no fan of Corker, but now you'll get somebody worse. That's the way this is going to work. The only hope is that Republican primary voters pick somebody so clearly appalling. But then that was Donald Trump. But whatever. And there's a good enough Democrat that normally would have been a sacrificial lamb, but a good enough Democrat who's running against him that some of these people manage to, I don't know. See, it's become tribal. And there are Republicans that would die before they'd vote for anybody with a D. Because it ain't their tribe. So yeah, this Pruitt, this despicable human being. I saw somewhere that he has a Secret Service contingent, like about of 16 people. It was in the double digits that are assigned to him. He's the friggin' Environmental Destruction Administration head. No EPA or EDA head has ever had such a... What the hell is with these people? He's assuming that a lot of people want to kill him? Listen to this. Employees report that in the offices of the EPA, he is often accompanied by armed guards. Pruitt. Inside his own offices, where he now has a $25,000 soundproof booth. And by the way, there are like secure rooms in every... The EPA has a secure room if he's worried about eavesdropping or hacking. What is this? The person who was a deputy, the spokesperson for the EPA under Obama, when told about this $25,000 soundproof booth, said, "What? That's bizarre. We already have," she said, "a secure room for working with classified information." Maybe Pruitt knows something that we don't know, like that the Russians are able to get through our little safe rooms like that. He leased jets more than once to fly to an island. That's a piece of land that's surrounded by water, where he has a second or third home. I don't know. So his wife and he are on you bought the ticket, $35,000 and back. so he could have dinner with his son. Now, he ain't completely stupid, so he always sets up a meeting of some sort whenever he takes one of these jets. A meeting with somebody who he would have met with if he'd taken that way he says, well, it was a meeting for blah, blah, blah. No EPA secretary has ever taken private jets before. It's unnecessary. This is why he strangles every effort to safeguard our environment, because it's too expensive. Can't afford that. No, but we can afford you having armed guards walking from your office to the bathroom, apparently. Having soundproof rooms built just for you. Where do you come up with these horrible people? How do you even... I don't know. Chuck writes, the pace of Trump's issues, the 24-hour news cycle, and the social media alerts since November 8th have left me physically drained. Yeah. I am less healthy today than I was last year. I think we probably are. Because stress, you know what stress does. Both stress and hostility do bad things inside our bodies. Set up chemical reactions that then have an impact on our hearts, on our immune systems, on all kinds of things. There is no doubt that Trump is really bad for our health. It takes a lot of energy, says Chuck, to both bite your tongue as well as vent your feelings. Trump's third-grade observations about the Atlantic and Puerto Rico seem juvenile to you and me, but to his followers, those comments are impressive. What? More than anything else, I am disappointed to learn that so many people in this country are as educationally deficient as he is. Yeah. Yeah, I think, Trump has, it's a wake-up call to all of us. We're learning things we didn't want to learn. Some huge issues like we're more racist than we've ever wanted to believe still. But yeah, the other one that I think is just scares me is how many Americans are just don't know anything. And they hate somebody like me and you for knowing things. We're the elite then. I've got to find it, but in one of my brother's books, it's a book he wrote a long time ago called I think The Anatomy of Disgust. He talks about socioeconomic strata and how the elite might look down on a plumber, let's say. Oh yeah, plumber's butt and all that kind of stuff, and sort of make fun or be disgusted. I don't know how I got into disgust. I've got to find the passages. But he said, it's quite clear, he said, that when I, for instance, he says, call a plumber to come to my house, that guy, the plumber, looks at me with contempt. This smart professor here has to call me, an uneducated person, to help do something that he should be able to do. You mean he didn't know to do this? These guys, they think they're smart. They're idiots. Something like that, about how this mutual sort of contempt based on socioeconomic status has always been there. It's now that it's come out. And again, maybe that's good in that we can see this, but I don't know. Chris says, I saw on Facebook somebody that's a diehard Trumpster say he wondered why people were bitching about Trump not doing anything about Puerto Rico. He then said he never knew it was part of the United States. And this is from a 50-year-old man. This is his base, uneducated, believe anything he says, and ripe for Trump's picking. You know, though, I saw a poll was taken, and an extraordinary number, more than Trump voters, didn't know about Puerto Rico. Young people don't know. What are young people taught these days? They don't know stuff that I think we used to know. I don't know. And then you think, Trump went to the best schools. Think of that. Trump went to the best schools. And he talks like a third grader and says things like, what was that other thing he said? Who knew? It was something like, Abraham Lincoln was a Republican. Remember that one? Abraham Lincoln was a Republican. Who knew? He said. This is a guy with a college degree from the best. So it also should inform you that people with degrees don't necessarily know anything either. They just might be rich, privileged, and have access to these places of higher learning by virtue of their money. It's also, now that we know about the Facebook ads that the Russians bought, it's also now becoming apparent, I guess, that they, as I predicted or said, if the Russians wanted to get Hillary, which is what they wanted to take her down. That was their first intent. Their second was getting Trump, because how wonderful to have this clueless idiot who owes them money in the White House. And so I had said that if you were a Sanders voter and you think you weren't being played by the Russian bots, you're out of your mind, because during the primaries, the Russians were aiding Sanders and Jill Stein, it turns out. And they succeeded. They really succeeded. Just understand, a lot of you, we're getting played. Caller, hi. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Sorry for calling 2 days in a row.
Yeah.
But talking about elites and being elitist, I used that argument sort of from your brother's book about there were elite plumbers. And that's you want elites to serve you. Do you want, the best plumber to come to your house, or do you want just some, dopest?
Yeah. You want people who know what they're doing, right?
The
best.
You want elites.
Yeah, you want the best brain surgeon. If you're having surgery, you want the best, right?
Mm-hmm. So I said to him, yes, I'm an elitist, definitely. And I said, the only time I look down on people is when they stoop low. So I made a little meme was, if you wouldn't stoop so low, I wouldn't have to look down on you. That's when you get to the racism and all that kind of good stuff. And I actually do. I look down on you if you believe that people's ethnicity, religions, and all that kind of stuff somehow makes you better than them or makes them different than you. And that's like I said yesterday. I'm really looking down on your ideas. I'm looking down on them. Are my ideas superior? Yes, they are, and I'll admit it. And if that makes me sound elitist, That's too bad. You can just educate yourself. Am I an elitist for saying, you're an idiot for not knowing that Puerto Rico is part of the United States? Does that make me an elitist? Or now, if I tell you that and you go and you still believe it and you find it out and say, I don't care what the facts say, I don't believe it. Okay, now you're an idiot. Does that make me an elitist? I don't think so.
Just because, it's funny as people now think that if they choose not to believe something, that then it isn't true. But the fact is, it's still true, whether you believe it or not.
Whether you believe it or not.
It's still true. Sorry.
I used the example of so we were talking about truth, that whole thing, what is truth? I said, the atoms, that there are atoms, things are made out of atoms, is true. It was true when absolutely nobody knew that they existed.
Right. Right.
They were true before humans evolved. That was true. It's still true.
Yes.
I said truth doesn't matter if it's in a brain. I said there's truth all over the universe that we have no idea exists.
It doesn't mean, just because we don't know it doesn't mean it ain't true.
Yeah.
Jeez. Oh, God. I mean, these things
sound...
sound...
For some reason...
Go ahead.
What's that? So it's one of those things where I was, I said, I was trying to explain to a cousin of mine about the idea of race existing, but not race itself. He couldn't, for some reason, his brain couldn't comprehend that. I said, it's an idea. I said, like, freedom is actually an idea. You can't cut somebody open and find their freedom. It's an idea.
Right.
And he still could not understand what I said. I said, okay, dragons are an idea. There are no such things as dragons. But, there's the idea of dragons, And he still couldn't understand what I was saying. He's still arguing with me. I was like, that's when I kind of give up.
But I have to tell you,
this guy's brain can't comprehend that.
Okay, but if a brain can't comprehend, is it right to look down on somebody who has a limited ability to understand these things? Or
no. See,
if they're doing it out of just sheer petulance or something, but if they literally
they can't understand it. Yeah, if I'm talking to a 4-year-old, I'm not going to look down on them. You know what I mean? But here's the ideas that I look down on are like racism. You know what I mean? That somehow...
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't look down on the person. I'm looking down on the ideas. I think I kind of... but it doesn't sound as harsh if I say I wouldn't look down on your ideas if they weren't so low. It sounds better as a bumper sticker. I wouldn't have to look down on you if you wouldn't stoop so low.
Okay.
It just sounds better as a bumper sticker.
Yeah, indeed.
Ad guy, remember?
Thank you, Clarence.
Thank you.
Okay, bye. You too.
Bye.
Hey, speaking of all the legislative achievements of the first 9 months of Trump's administration, have you heard about the SHARE Act? It is. It's something. It's in the pipeline. SHARE stands for, how they come up with it. Is there like somebody who has a job coming up with these acronyms? Because some of them are a bit tortured. Here's what SHARE means. Sportsmen's Heritage and Recreational Enhancement Act. Well, that's something that is without a doubt going to pass this Republican Congress if they ever get around to doing anything. The SHARE Act. Let me give you some of what's in here. The Sportsmen's Heritage and Recreational Enhancement Act makes it easier to buy armor-piercing bullets. Roll that one around in the Sportsman's, and you mean it enhances your pleasure in killing somebody if you pierce through body armor and still snag a kill. What the hell? First of all, one could ask the question, you mean armor-piercing bullets are legal? Yeah, you can buy them now. This just makes it easier. They're going to have them like in little, those things that used to have like bubble gum. It just, you put in a quarter, turn it, and armor-piercing bullets will drop out now, I guess. Okay, because I know that's a big, if you think of all the things that are needed in this country. Easier access to armor-piercing bullets by the public is, it's up there. And the Sportsmen's Heritage and Enhancement, Recreational Enhancement Act would also really discourage police officers from questioning people about whether they're carrying a weapon. Well, you fill in the blanks there. I'm done. Yeah, I can see anything that would stymie a police officer from being able to say, "Are you carrying?" So police officers won't be able to say that. They already have laws, where doctors are not allowed to ask somebody, "Do you have guns in your house?" If they have pediatricians wanted to ask that question, just making sure that they were secured properly so the little kid wouldn't be dead, which happens almost every day, if not every day. Okay, so that's some of the stuff that Trump's going to be able to brag about having accomplished legislatively. And let's see, another thing. Oh, here's a really important section in the Sportsmen's Heritage and Recreational Enhancement Act, that would allow for the importation of 41 frozen polar bears. Now, I will leave it to your imaginations to come up with what the hell could that be about. That there is a bill that's making its way through a Republican Congress. This is a bill written by Republicans that will allow the importation of 41 frozen polar bears. Those poor polar bears, man. Well, the reason, okay, in case you didn't come up with something, is American hunters who killed them. Apparently, it's still legal in Canada to kill a polar bear. Well, I guess they have trouble with their Native American population there. I don't know. How do you kill? How's it illegal to kill an animal that is clearly in danger of extinction? So, there are 41 frozen polar bears somewhere in Canada where they were shot by some American son of a bitch. And then the American son of a bitch was told, "You can't take that into the United States." Because some Democrats must have passed legislation saying you can't shoot these things. And if you do, you're damn well sure not bringing them back to hang on your wall, okay? Or lie down on before your fire and have sex. You sons of bitches! So this is for 41 bloodthirsty polar bear killers who must have gone crying to their representatives, their congressmen, their senators, saying, "I shot a polar bear in Canada, and customs won't let me come in with it. Pass a bill." So they're going to. The Sportsmen's Heritage and Recreational Enhancement Act. So make it easier to buy your armor-piercing bullets. Make it easier to bring your carnage back. Make it easier to carry a gun and not have to be asked by a police officer if you are carrying a gun. And then also, there's one more thing in this bill that I want to tell you about, and this is the one you've heard about. You didn't hear about all that, about the armor-piercing bullets. Here. The other part of the Sportsman Enhancement measure is to make it easier to buy silencers. This is the thing that has been the main thing. When Donald Trump Jr. found out Daddy was going to be the president of the United States, he thought, oh, goody, 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 because now I can more easily buy a silencer for all my guns. What do we need silencers for? Well, all those guys who want them say when they're, aiming at some beautiful leopard, polar bear, some glorious animal, the sound of the gun going off endangers their hearing. So, when you think about it, okay, this bill will pass, president will sign it, and that means the next time somebody goes into a theater and decides to blow away the people in the theater, people won't even know what's happening. You get to do quiet mass killings. How did this become a priority? Well, of course, look no further than the NRA. Turns out the NRA is not having a good year. What? How could they not have a good year when the president is a Republican, the Congress is Republican, and for all measures, the Supreme Court is Republican? Here's why. The NRA and its gun manufacturers make money hand over fist only when Democrats win. And especially when a black one. So as soon as Obama won, they go nuts. They go running for every new gun they can get their hands on, right? And Hillary, oh my God, Hillary was going to take your guns away. So as long as they can stampede people into the gun stores to buy even more stuff because the Democrats are coming in to take your guns away. Turns out it's not good when Republicans are in office. Let me see if I can find some numbers for you. After Obama was reelected, gun dealers sold 2 million guns in January, which was the highest ever. And in the Trump era, unfortunately, states' sales are declining and the industry needs a new source of profit. Silencers can cost as much as $1,000. Well, so they need silencers and more armor-piercing bullets and, priorities. Keep your eyes on the prize. Quickly, let me get an emailer in here, Brooke. Daily, we hear from Trump and we hear from his surrogates. They steal the headlines every day. Where is the Democratic leadership? Nowhere to be found. There's never been a better opportunity to steal voters away from the opposition than now. Right now, Perez, Pelosi, Schumer. You can hear a pin drop. Well, let me just say this. It's not in their defense. But you hear things because media highlights them, right? Of course, if the Democrats were smart, they'd get a bunch of bots and start, upping their presence on social media. I don't know. Okay, well, thank you. I think we're done. Thank you for spending some time with me, venting, ranting, beating your breasts and tearing your hair. And I'll see you tomorrow, I hope. Have a good one.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.